A dinner you've eaten 100 times before. Nothing unusual on the plate. But an hour later, your waistband is tighter, there's a low ache under your ribs, and by 9 o'clock, you're on the couch wondering what's actually wrong with you. 10 years ago, this exact meal did nothing. You'd have forgotten about it by morning. Nothing on the plate changed. So what did? Here's the part almost nobody tells you. This is real, it's measurable, and it is not you're just getting older. Researchers can now track it directly with devices you swallow that travel through your entire digestive tract, and the number they've found is exact. We'll get to it shortly. But here's the bigger surprise. It isn't one thing breaking down. It's 7 separate measurable systems inside your body, each running on its own schedule, and most of them you can still control. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which is which, starting with the one that's probably costing you the most right now. Quick, important caveat, most digestive discomfort isn't disease. About 1 in 5 adults gets some kind of stomach symptom every single year. Bloating, irregularity, and off night after a rich meal. And most of it passes on its own. That's exactly why the deeper shift is so easy to miss. It doesn't arrive as one bad night. It arrives as a slow tightening of tolerance, the kind you don't notice until you realize you've been calling it normal for the last 10 years. So that's what this actually is. Not a detox, not a cleanse, not a miracle reset. 7 mechanisms, each backed by research, not folklore. We'll separate what's genuinely aging from what's just habit and which popular fixes are real versus wellness industry noise. Near the end, one variable that affects a huge share of people this age and almost nobody thinks to question. Let's start with the one that's hardest to argue with because researchers have already measured with actual numbers exactly how much it changes. Here's the number we promised you. Think of digestion less like a straight pipe and more like a current moving through a long, winding river. In your 20s and 30s, that current runs brisk and steady. Starting around midlife, it slows. And this time, we don't have to guess by how much. Researchers using swallowable motility capsules, devices that travel your entire digestive tract and report back, have measured it directly. Whole gut transit time lengthens by roughly 0.3 to 0.8% for every additional year of age. Sounds tiny, but it compounds. By your 60s, your gut is moving somewhere between 7 and 14% slower than it was in your 30s. This is one of the most solid, repeated findings in aging gut research. Not a theory, a measurement. The muscles and nerves lining your intestinal wall simply lose a bit of strength and coordination, the same way muscles anywhere else in your body do. In real life, that looks like stool sitting longer before it moves on, which means more water gets reabsorbed, firmer stool, more bloating, more of that backed up feeling. This part is genuinely just age. But 2 of the biggest amplifiers on top of it are entirely within your control. Here's the first. The first amplifier is fiber, and it matters more here than almost anywhere else in your body. Fiber isn't just roughage, it's what gives stool bulk and grip. Think tread on a tire. Take it away, and the slowing current from mechanism 1 has nothing left to move efficiently. Stool gets smaller, drier, harder to push, turning a mild age-related slowdown into an actual stall. What almost nobody realizes, fiber intake tends to drop through midlife without anyone noticing it happen. Guidelines call for 21 to 30 plus grams a day for adults past 50. Most people eat well under that. Whole grains, legumes, and vegetables lose out to convenience food, which is almost by definition stripped of fiber. Stack on more processed food, more red meat, more salt, all shown to slow digestion further. And the age-related slowdown from mechanism 1 gets a second slowdown piled directly on top, one that's entirely down to habit. The fix has some of the strongest evidence in this entire video. Rebuild fiber gradually, alongside enough water to let it work. We'll come back to exactly how. But first, an even stranger reason fiber matters more after 40 than it used to. Here's the surprising part. Your gut isn't just a tube, it's home to trillions of bacteria, and that population is not static. Picture a specialized workforce instead, where different bacterial employees are each trained for one job. One strain breaks down the fiber in onions, another handles oats, another beans. Large studies tracking this workforce over time have found something specific. Microbial diversity climbs steadily through your 20s and 30s, then plateaus right around age 40. That's not a coincidence, and it's not just a catchy video title. That's an actual research finding, the age where this specific system stops expanding on its own. From there, your gut stops recruiting new specialists on its own. If your diet stays narrow going forward, that workforce simply doesn't diversify any further, and in later decades, it can start to shrink, with certain beneficial groups becoming rarer. Why does that matter day to day? A diverse workforce breaks fiber down into compounds that lower inflammation and support your gut lining. A narrower one does less of that work, which shows up as more gas, more bloating, and a gut that suddenly reacts to foods it used to handle just fine. The evidence gets a little softer here. Researchers can measure the shift, but not exactly how much of any one person's symptoms it explains. Still, the takeaway holds. This workforce is still hiring at any age, but the only candidate it accepts is dietary variety, not a probiotic capsule. A capsule adds a couple of new hires. It doesn't retrain the workforce you already employ. Only what and how many different things you eat does that. Fiber and gut bacteria explain a lot. They're still not the whole story. There's a third lever almost nobody connects to digestion, and the evidence behind it is unusually strong. The gut wall is lined with muscle, and muscle works the same way everywhere in your body. Use it, it stays strong. Leave it idle, it weakens. After 40, activity tends to drop, not all at once, just steadily as life gets busier and recovery gets slower. Sedentary adults have meaningfully higher rates of constipation than active ones. That part's not surprising. Here's what is. In controlled studies, a brisk 10 to 15 minute walk has been shown to roughly double intestinal contractions almost immediately. And some studies link a walk right after eating to gut motility, jumping by up to 70% within minutes. That's not a small effect for something this simple. It means the same current from mechanism 1, the one that naturally slows with age, can be sped back up temporarily just by moving your body after you eat. This won't fix everything. Even highly active people get gut symptoms. Movement is a lever, not a cure. But it's one of the few fixes in this video with genuinely strong, repeatable evidence behind it, and it costs nothing. But movement only changes how fast things move. It says nothing about when they should be moving in the first place, and that turns out to matter more than most people assume. Your digestive system runs on its own internal clock, synced, like the rest of your body, to daylight and darkness. Eating at irregular hours, especially very late, throws that rhythm out of sync with the rest of your body. Your gut doesn't shut off at night, but it's not operating at full capacity either. The same meal that moves through smoothly at noon meets more resistance, more friction at 9 at night. In midlife, later dinners are common. Packed schedules push meals back, and lying down soon after a heavy late one is one of the more reliable ways to trigger reflux and disrupt digestion overnight. The evidence here is still developing compared to fiber or movement. This is an emerging area, not a settled one, but the direction is consistent. A more regular eating window and an earlier dinner appears to support smoother digestion and may even help sleep. Lower certainty lever, still a low-cost one. This next mechanism has nothing to do with what you eat. Your gut and your brain are in constant communication, the gut-brain axis, running largely through vagal tone, the activity level of the nerve connecting the two. Under stress, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline, hormones built for exactly one job, getting you away from danger. Digestion is not part of that job. Blood flow shifts away from the gut, movement slows, sensitivity rises. Here's the catch. Your nervous system doesn't do both at once. It leans towards stress or it leans toward digestion and repair, rarely both, fully at the same time. And midlife tends to bring more of the chronic low-grade kind of stress, careers, caregiving, family responsibilities, the kind that doesn't resolve in a day or a week. This shows up clinically, not just anecdotally. Stress and poor sleep are well established as amplifiers of bloating and cramping, and stress reduction techniques show measurable benefit in people with functional gut conditions. It's not the whole picture, but it's rarely irrelevant either. A few minutes of slow, deliberate breathing before a meal is small, genuinely supported, and it shifts that balance back toward digestion before you take the first bite. And now the piece we promised earlier, the one almost nobody thinks to question. By midlife, most adults are on at least one regular medication, often more. And a surprising number of very common drugs carry digestive side effects that rarely get connected back to the gut. Opioid painkillers, constipation in an estimated 40 to 60% of people who take them. Iron and calcium supplements, well documented for hardening stool. Antihistamines, sleep aids, antidepressants, slow gut movement as a known side effect of how they work elsewhere in the body. Acid-reducing medications change how digestion unfolds further down the line. None of this means these medications are wrong to take. Many are necessary, sometimes life-changing. But if a digestive symptom showed up around the same time as a new prescription, that's a conversation for a doctor, not a dismissal as just age. This is genuinely one of the highest evidence explanations in this entire video, and one of the least talked about. 7 mechanisms, all backed by evidence, all worth knowing. But only some of them deserve to be the first thing you actually change. change. The strongest evidence by a wide margin is fiber paired with hydration. Rebuild fiber intake toward that 21 to 30 gram range gradually while drinking enough water for it to do its job. This has decades of research behind it. Go too fast without enough fluid and you'll just trade one discomfort for another. So the operative word is gradual. Close behind, diversity. Not more of one superfood, but more different plants across a week. Vegetables, fruit, legumes, nuts, whole grains. This is what feeds a broader range of gut bacteria, not a single probiotic strain. Then movement, both general activity and specifically a short walk after eating. Of everything in this video, that 10 to 15 minute post-meal walk may have the fastest, most measurable effect on any given day. After that, the lower certainty but still reasonable levers, a more consistent eating window, and an earlier dinner. Less processed food, fried food, and alcohol, all linked to slower digestion when frequent. And managing stress and sleep, but which won't fix a symptom on the spot, but changes how your whole system handles food over time. And finally, genuinely worth a conversation, not a guess. Review your medications and supplements with a doctor if a symptom started around the same time as a new one. Probiotic supplements and fermented foods can be a reasonable addition on top of all this. The evidence for them is real but modest and inconsistent across strains and conditions. They're a supporting player here, not a starting point. Now for the part the wellness industry gets wrong most often. Your colon does not need to be cleansed. It already does that job continuously on its own. That's what it's for. There's no credible research showing that juice cleanses, detox teas, or laxative regimens remove anything a healthy liver, kidneys, and colon aren't already handling. At best, they do nothing. At worst, they cause dehydration and electrolyte problems. Here's one that surprises people. Stomach acid does not meaningfully decline with age in most healthy adults. If anything, research shows acid output stays fairly stable over time. So frequent heartburn in midlife usually comes down to reflux mechanics, how and when you're eating, not a mysterious acid deficiency, whatever a supplement label might suggest. And no single pill, tea, or gut reset program fixes this. The mechanisms we just walked through are separate, overlapping systems: motility, diet, microbiome, movement, timing, stress, medication. Nothing addresses all of them at once. Most of what we've described here is uncomfortable, not dangerous, a normal, manageable shift that responds to the fixes above. But there are signs that go beyond ordinary midlife digestion, worth knowing plainly, without alarm. See a doctor if you notice unintended weight loss, visible blood in the stool, or stool that's black and tarry, pain that's severe, persistent, or getting worse, a sudden change in bowel habits that doesn't respond to basic diet changes, difficulty swallowing or persistent vomiting, or unexplained fatigue and anemia, which can sometimes point to hidden blood loss in the gut. None of these are common. Most people watching this will never experience them, but they're the line between this is a normal part of getting older and this deserves a professional evaluation, and that line is worth respecting. Here's what's actually reassuring about everything we just covered. None of it is mysterious anymore. For a lot of people, midlife digestive discomfort feels random, unpredictable, unfixable, just something to live with. It isn't. It's a handful of specific, measurable systems, each shifting a little, each explainable, each traceable to something real happening in your body. That's a very different feeling than my body is just breaking down. It's closer to this. Your body changed the rules slightly. Now you know what they are. None of this is a system in decline that you're powerless over. It's a system that keeps responding continuously to what you do for it. Nobody needs to overhaul their entire life this week. The research points towards small, unglamorous, repeatable choices. A little more fiber tomorrow than today, a walk after dinner instead of straight to the couch, a slightly earlier last meal, one honest conversation with a doctor about a medication you've been on for years. None of that is a cure. None of it promises perfection, but it's real, it's grounded in actual evidence, and it's available to you starting with your very next meal.